addressed the issue of rebuilding Gaza following the U.S.-brokered Israel-Hamas ceasefire agreement during a press conference in Ramallah. He has stated that Ramallah-based Palestinian Authority would work with international institutions and partners to address Gaza's security, logistical, financial, as well as governance challenges. Let's listen into what he has said.
The 5-year program is structured in 3 sequential phases. The first phase, a 6-month emergency phase, focused on early recovery valued at $3.5 billion. The second phase, a 3-year reconstruction and recovery phase, valued at about $30 billion. And the third phase will cover the rest of the program. Together, these phases provide a coherent pathway from relief to sustainable development, ensuring that immediate interventions are linked to institutional recovery, economic revival, and durable reconstruction. Hopefully, in the coming month, November, Egypt will convene the Gaza Reconstruction Conference in Cairo. This conference will serve as the central platform for mobilizing international resources and partnerships, while reaffirming that all efforts are anchored in Palestinian national ownership and leadership. The government of Palestine reaffirms that effective governance in Gaza is an essential pillar.
Now for this discussion, we're joined by Dan Perry. He's a political analyst, joins us live from Tel Aviv. Thank you very much, Dan, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, Dan, looking at this news, also looking at recent events that are happening in Gaza, between Gaza and Israel, the international community has been divided over how to handle Hamas and how to also handle Palestinian authorities, such as what we just heard from the Palestinian Authority. So do you believe these groups should be treated primarily as a political entity? Who do you think should be treated as a governing body, legitimate body? Yeah.
Well, as occurs often in life, and as occurs almost always in the Middle East, the trick is to identify what is the least bad option. And a genuinely good option is not necessarily available. So the right-wing government of Benjamin Netanyahu has been, for the past many years, trying to demonize the Palestinian Authority, and I've even heard them claiming that they are as bad as Hamas or worse, which is preposterous. The Palestinian Authority probably should be restored to Gaza from where they were kicked out in a military coup of sorts by Hamas in 2007. That said, Israel has legitimate claims against the PA, as do the Palestinians. PA has been corrupt, incompetent, and inefficient. It's really constituted a waste of a lot of the billions that the world community has poured into the effort to build Palestine. And for almost 30 years, as a state in waiting, they haven't done a very good job of making people confident in their ability to run a state that is functional. There are 2 primary reforms that the world wants of the PA. One is for them to change their educational curriculum, which weirdly still sort of educates the youth of Palestine to war and not to peace. And the other is to stop paying the families of people in Israeli prison, many of whom are pretty heavy-duty terrorists, money, which is seen as essentially encouragement for terrorists to carry out terrorism. The latter issue has been somewhat resolved to a degree by the fact that Israel had to release most of them, not all of them, but most of them, in the deal with Hamas this week. I think the PA probably should be strong-armed to do these and other reforms and be seen as a government in waiting in Gaza. And until then, there needs to be some transitional situation. They've spoken of a government of technocrats appointed, presumably in the end by the PA. With a little bit of a pretense that the PA is not yet in charge in Gaza. And of course, an international oversight committee chaired by Donald Trump, which is a little ridiculous, but the situation is ridiculous. So it's not clear, it's fuzzy. Right now, the main challenge is to get Hamas out of the way. And the main problem is that even though Trump pretended otherwise, Hamas has not formally accepted the 20-point plan that involves their disarmament and removal. And the signs to date are very bad. They don't appear to be preparing to disarm and waiting for the details of who to hand their weapons to. Rather, they're appointing chieftains all over the areas of Gaza vacated by the IDF and murdering clan officials and leaders who they deem insufficiently loyal. So someone's got to step in pretty quickly with a very big hammer, and I fear that has to be Hamas's, well, not sponsors exactly, but the mediators close to Hamas, which would be Qatar, Turkey, and also Egypt. It has to be made very clear to the Palestinians that there will be absolutely no reconstruction in any territory that is controlled by Hamas. It sounds cruel, and I think that would therefore have to be married to a policy that enables the Palestinians to flee those areas and to find a decent life elsewhere. It's messy. It's really not peace in our time quite yet, and that's the landscape more or less.
Dan, talking about reconstruction, I wanted to shed light or ask about this. The fact that a lot of European countries have already come up with how much they are going to be contributing to reconstruction of Gaza. And we also see a lot of countries pushing Russia to pay for the reconstruction of Ukraine after post-war. So do you think Israel should also pay for post-war Gaza's reconstruction?
That's an interesting question. Hard to say. Maybe. It'll be difficult to get the Israelis to agree, not because they lack the funds, although, I mean, they don't really need this additional expense, but because it would involve some notion that reparations are needed and that Israel created more destruction in Gaza than was absolutely necessary. And they're going to reject that idea. And if they accept that idea, that also exposes them to potential charges, well, of war crimes. The analogy is very, very flawed because the Russia and Ukraine is purely a case of Russian aggression against Ukraine, which, as far as I can tell, even though some elements in the world might agree to acquiesce with to a degree, maybe supporting the notion of paying off Russia with part of the territory of eastern Ukraine, Donbass in particular, no one really thinks the Russian attack on Ukraine is justified. Whereas in the case of Israel and Palestine, Israel was attacked. And what is clearly a genocidal attack on October 7th, killing Jews for the sake of killing Jews, and not only that, but in the most purposeful and engineered savagery, truly diabolical, I mean, perhaps I've ever seen in my lifetime. Israel's response to that is a clear case of self-defense. Did they go too far? Was there anything else they could have done? Who's to blame? It's complex because Hamas really does put civilians purposely in harm's way. Hamas, and this is hard for some people to hear, but they're naive. Hamas wants Palestinians to be killed because it has PR value for them against Israel. Hamas is a nihilistic jihadist group that seeks and thrives from destruction. Hamas used mosques, schools, hospitals, UN sites as weapons depots, as rocket firing facilities, as offices and headquarters. They did this purposely to draw fire to civilian areas. So to get Israel to now pay for the resulting destruction is going to be tough.
Thank you very much, Dan, for sharing that insight.